The sound of the cathedral bells never leaves me. Even here, beneath the smog-thick heavens of Gathis IV, they toll as though the Emperor himself were keeping count of every soul we condemned. I remember standing before the pyres, my rosette glinting in the oily light, my voice steady as I read the charges. Heresy, mutation, apostasy. The words were easy. They always were. It is mercy, I told myself, to end corruption before it spreads. Mercy to burn the infection before it festers. The screams that followed were only proof of purity's triumph, or so I once believed. Now when I close my eyes, I see their faces, blackened silhouettes against a sea of fire. I can still smell the promethium thick in my throat, taste the iron on my tongue. The servitors moved among the corpses like priests of ash, sealing their mouths with holy wax, their hollow eyes unseeing. In those moments I told myself that I was serving the Emperor's will, that every sacrifice, no matter how brutal, drew us closer to his light. But faith is a fragile thing, and even the purest devotion can fracture when the silence between prayers grows too deep. The war for Gathis IV was never about heresy. It was about fear. The manufactorums had failed, the tithes had fallen short, and the ecclesiarchy demanded blood to cleanse the shame. I came as judge and saviour, draped in authority so absolute that no voice could rise against me. And yet as I watched the flame devour the last of the accused, I felt no triumph. Only an emptiness I could not name. The Emperor's light burned above me in stained glass glory, but in my chest there was only shadow. Later, in the cold sanctum of my transport, I stared at the reflection in the brass of my bolter casing. The eyes that met mine were those of a stranger, tired, hollow, and uncertain. For the first time I wondered if the Emperor had ever truly spoken to me at all, or if I had mistaken the echo of my own conviction for his divine command. That thought alone was enough to damn me. The vox crackled then, reporting unrest in the lower hives, workers refusing to kneel, priests found dead, their tongues nailed to the altars they once kissed. I ordered another purge without hesitation. Orders are armor. Hesitation is death. The dropships descended like falling stars, and within hours another district burned. But as the fires spread, the air began to hum. Not with the roar of engines, but with something subtler, older. A resonance that seemed to crawl beneath the skin, whispering in words I could not understand. It was there, among the ashes of my own command, that I first felt the weight of faith. Not the pride of righteousness, but the crushing burden of its absence. Every oath I had sworn, every soul I had judged, all of it began to twist together into something I could no longer separate from sin. I found myself kneeling amid the ruins, the heat of the pyres pressing against my back, and for the first time I did not pray. I simply listened. And in the distance, beneath the scream of burning metal and the wailing of the penitent, I thought I heard something answer. The next morning, I gathered what was left of my retinue. Interrogator Dresk, his augmetic eye whirring faintly beneath the soot. Sister Lyra, her armor scorched, the edges of her purity seals curling like dead leaves. They waited for orders, eyes downcast. None dared to speak of what they'd seen during the night. The flicker of figures moving through flame, the voices echoing through the ruins, too human to be wind. I gave no orders. I told them only to watch. The hive was silent when we entered it. The air was thick with ash and the sweet rot of burnt flesh. Entire hab blocks lay hollow, their walls etched with prayers written in blood. Emperor, forgive us. Emperor, guide us. Emperor, save us. The words repeated endlessly, spiraling down stairwells and corridors until they blurred into madness. I found one child alive, a boy no older than 10, eyes like cracked glass. He looked up at me and whispered. He didn't come. Then he smiled and died. I carried that corpse for hours before I laid it down. We found the last priest of the district in the catacombs beneath the manufactorum. His hands were nailed to the altar, his mouth sewn shut. Someone had carved the aquila into his chest upside down, each stroke deliberate, reverent almost. Around him burned candles made of human tallow, their flames unmoving despite the stale wind. Dresk moved to extinguish them, but I stopped him. There was something in the air, something that felt like the moment before a prayer, a hush that tasted of static and sorrow. That night I dreamt of terror. Not as it is, but as it once was, golden spires stretching to heaven, oceans of light flowing through the streets. I saw the Emperor upon his throne, radiant and unbroken, his eyes open and alive. And then he looked at me and said, Do you understand now? When I awoke, I was weeping, though I could not say why. Lyra found me there, kneeling in the dust, my rosette lying in the dirt beside me. She reached for it, her voice trembling as she said my name. Inquisitor, what is your command? I looked at her for a long time before answering. Faith, I said. Find me faith, she didn't understand. Perhaps she never could. But she obeyed, as all the faithful must. In the days that followed, we searched the hive for survivors. What we found instead were relics, shards of devotion scattered like bones, a tattered banner depicting the Emperor's face, half-burned and stained, a Vox recording looping a single phrase, "His light endures," again and again, until the words lost all meaning. And beneath it all, that same low hum, that pulse I could feel behind my eyes. It followed me like a heartbeat, too constant to ignore. When the Ordo contacted me for a report, I told them the truth, that the heresy had been purged, that Gathis IV was secure, that the Emperor's justice had prevailed. They commended me. They called me righteous. They said my zeal would be remembered. But I remember none of their praise, only the silence that came after the Vox cut out, and the faint sound of something breathing in the static. I didn't know it then, but the Inquisition's gaze had already turned toward me. To them, doubt is the first step toward corruption. And in that moment, as I watched the ashes of Gathis IV fall like snow upon my armor, I realized that I had become the very thing I once hunted. For what greater heresy is there than to lose faith and still keep killing in its name? There are worlds that never heal. Gathis IV is one of them. Weeks after the fires gutted out, the air still tasted of burnt metal and sorrow. The ash fell like snow through the open wounds of the hive, settling in the mouths of the dead. The administratum called it purified. The ecclesiarchy declared it cleansed, but no scripture could disguise the stench. I walked those streets again, not as an inquisitor delivering judgment, but as a mourner, wandering his own graveyard. The bodies had been cleared by servitors, their remains sealed in steel vaults to be repurposed as nutrient matter for the surviving hivers. Nothing in the Imperium is ever wasted, not blood, not flesh, not faith. Yet the eyes of the living still held that same hollow shine, as though their souls had been burned alongside the guilty. They knelt when I passed, but not out of reverence. It was habit, reflex, fear, the kind that breeds in generations who have never known a day free of it. I remember a woman with no arms, her stumps wrapped in cloth marked with the aquila. She knelt beside a gutter that once ran with water and whispered a prayer to her reflection. "He forgives," she said, over and over, though the reflection never answered. When I asked her who she prayed to, she looked up, eyes wide with a child's sincerity. "To you, my lord." That was the moment something inside me broke. I turned away, unable to bear the weight of her faith. Sister Lyra stayed close, her expression unreadable beneath the soot and the cracked ceramite of her armor. She was born to obedience, sculpted by doctrine into a weapon of purity. But even she began to hesitate when she saw the children gathering bones for warmth, the priests bartering scripture for bread. "This is what victory looks like," she said, her voice brittle. "This is what faith buys." I did not answer. I had no words left that didn't taste like ash. At night, I sat alone in the ruins of the central chapel. The statues of saints lay toppled, their marble faces split by heat. I ran my hand over one, the face of Saint Bastiel, martyr of Mars, and found the stone smooth, almost warm, as if something still lived beneath it. I whispered the old prayers, the litanies of duty and absolution, but the words no longer fit my mouth. They felt foreign, hollow, like an actor's lines in a play whose meaning I'd forgotten. Then the hum returned, low, constant, rising from beneath the floor like a heartbeat. I thought at first it was machinery, some half-dead generator still struggling to breathe. But when I pressed my palm to the ground, it felt alive, rhythmic, intentional. It was not a sound, but a presence, one that seemed to listen as much as it spoke. My thoughts began to stutter, my memories blurring at the edges. I saw the pyres again, the faces of the burned, the child whispering, "He didn't come!" And behind it all, that hum, patient and endless. I tore myself from the chapel and staggered into the streets. Lyra found me hours later, kneeling before a shrine that had been shattered by shellfire. She asked what I had seen, and I told her nothing. How could I explain that I had begun to doubt not only my faith, but the Emperor himself? That I feared his silence was not holy at all, but abandonment? Dresk, ever the pragmatist, blamed it on exhaustion. He suggested rest, recalibration of my neural augments, a brief return to the orbiting frigate to restore perspective. But I could not leave. Something in that world called to me, a faint, persistent whisper beneath the ash and ruin. It was not the voice of the warp. I knew its taint well enough to recognize it. This was something else, something cold, rational, waiting. In the third week after the purge, the survivors began to gather around the ruins of the Manufactorum spire. They built crude effigies from scrap and wire, figures with no faces, their arms outstretched to the sky. They called them the Silent Saints. No one claimed to have invented them. The people simply woke one morning to find them there, standing amid the wreckage, their shadows long and wrong against the ground. I asked one of the pilgrims what the statues meant. He smiled through cracked lips. "They listen," he said. "They understand." When I ordered them torn down, the workers obeyed. But by the next dawn, new ones stood in their place, taller, leaner, their bodies now shaped from melted armor plates, their heads wrapped in strips of parchment, scrawled with half-legible prayers. Lyra grew uneasy. "This reeks of heresy," she said, her hand tightening on her bolter. "They are worshipping absence," Dresk agreed, suggesting immediate extermination. But I hesitated. There was no sigil of chaos, no sign of corruption. Only silence. The kind that draws the broken to fill it with hope. That night, as the fires burned again and the screams echoed down the hive's hollow bones, I walked alone to the largest effigy. Its surface shimmered with heat, the metal warped and blackened. I stood before it, uncertain whether I was interrogating it or confessing to it. "What are you?" I whispered. And from within the stillness came a reply. Not a voice, not even a sound, but a thought that unfolded in my mind like a wound. "We are what remains when faith dies." I fell to my knees, every instinct screaming to call upon the Emperor's name, to recite the canticle of purity, to banish the blasphemy. But the words would not come. The hum beneath the earth swelled until it became a roar inside my skull. For a heartbeat, I felt myself dissolve. No body, no name, only an endless weight pressing from within. And then just as suddenly it was gone. When I awoke, dawn had come. The effigy stood untouched, but the ashes around it were shaped into the sign of the Aquila, perfect, symmetrical, drawn by no human hand. Lyra found me there again. Her face was pale, her voice low. "Inquisitor," she said, "you called out in your sleep." But not to him. I said nothing. The sky above Gathis-Thorpal was a sickly grey, its clouds heavy with smog and unburned sorrow. Somewhere beyond them the stars watched in silence, indifferent and eternal. For the first time I understood that faith is not a shield, it is a mirror. It shows you what you already believe, until there's nothing left to see but yourself. That day, I ordered our withdrawal. Dresk protested, citing unfinished investigations, unsealed heretic cells, unpurged districts. I overruled him. "The world is clean," I said. "There is nothing left worth saving." We left at dusk, our ship rising through the ashen skies, engines cutting through the veil of smoke that clung to the planet like a curse. From orbit, Gathis-Thorpal looked peaceful, a sphere of muted grey, its fires smothered, its wounds invisible. But even as I watched it fade into the void, the hum followed me. Faint, distant, almost imagined, but there. It vibrated in the hull, in the deck beneath my boots, in the pulse of my own blood. And in that moment, I realized the truth I had been fleeing. The scent of ashes was not the smell of the dead. It was the smell of faith burning away. And somewhere in that smoke, something else was breathing in its place. The void between stars is supposed to be silent, but silence has its own voice. On the journey back to the Segmentum archives, the hum I'd heard on Gathis-Thorpal became more than a memory. It became a companion. It threaded through the ship's bulkheads, nested in the static of the Vox, and breathed between the clicks of cooling metal. The crew whispered of machine spirits restless and unappeased, of the Geller field flickering like a candle flame. I said nothing. To acknowledge it would make it real. Lyra spent her nights in the chapel, kneeling before an icon of the Emperor, her prayers strained and feverish. Dresk busied himself with data slate analysis, trying to bury logic into the growing madness. I tried to read the old records of the Ordo Hereticus, files sealed and forgotten, fragments of investigations erased by censure, but the words swam before my eyes. Between the lines, I saw shapes, not letters, but impressions, as though the parchment itself remembered what it once contained. And in that space between knowledge and forgetting, something watched me read. When we reached the fortress archive on Mycenor Prime, I felt the weight of 1,000 unspoken secrets pressing down from its black stone walls. The vault was older than most worlds, built by hands that had no memory of mercy. Custodians of knowledge moved in silence, their faces hidden behind steel masks etched with scripture. They spoke only in liturgical codes, their voices modulated through vox grills that made every word sound like a prayer half drowned in static. I came seeking absolution, though I would never have admitted it. I asked for access to the restricted librarium, records concerning lost inquisitors, those declared extremis diabolus or missing in service. The custodian assigned to me did not speak, only turned and led me through the labyrinth. The corridors twisted in ways that mocked geometry, the walls carved with the names of saints long forgotten. Every step echoed like a heartbeat, as though the fortress itself was alive and remembering. In the chamber's heart lay the vault of the whispering dead. Its doors were wrought from black adamantine, engraved with sigils that shimmered faintly under the lumen lights. No servitor entered here. No vox signal reached within. The custodian placed his hand upon the seal and turned to me. "Only one who carries guilt may enter," he said. His voice was soft, mechanical, and final. The doors opened with a sound like a dying breath. Inside, the air was colder than the void. Rows of data caskets stretched into the darkness, each one marked by a single name and date of termination. I walked among them as a pilgrim might walk through graves. Some bore names I knew, inquisitors once praised for their zeal, their devotion.
Others were blank, their inscriptions scrubbed away.
Those were the ones that drew my attention. The nameless, the forgotten. I activated a casket at random. The hollow image flickered to life, fragmented recordings, broken testimonies, voices speaking through layers of distortion. A woman's voice, weary but resolute, recited a confession. The Emperor dreams, but his dreams are not of light. They are of fire.
And we are the smoke. The recording cut off in static. I opened another.
A man's voice, frantic. He looked at me through the eyes of a saint. There was nothing human there.
Only hunger, another cut, another fragment.
Each more desperate than the last. It was then that I found it, a sealed record under my own designation. Kael'Verin, date pending, status incomplete.
My blood ran cold.
I had never filed such an archive, never authorized such an entry. The custodians had not followed me inside. I was alone. My hand trembled as I broke the seal. The hollow flickered and I saw myself.
Not as I was, but as I had been, standing over the pyres of Gathis IV, the fire reflecting in my eyes.
And then my reflection spoke, voice, calm, deliberate, and utterly alien. You are already gone, it said.
This is your echo. I stumbled backward, the image collapsing into static.
My thoughts fractured, time slipping like oil through my fingers. The hum filled the chamber, rising in pitch until it became almost a song, a hymn sung by something without a mouth. The lights dimmed.
I felt the presence before I saw it.
Shadows rippled along the far wall, twisting into a shape not bound by flesh. It had no face, only a suggestion of one, forming and dissolving with every flicker of light. What are you?
I whispered.
My voice came out small, a child's voice, lost in the dark. The shadow moved closer, and though it had no eyes, I felt its gaze pierce through me, seeing not skin or soul, but the thin line that separated the two.
Its voice came as thought, as memory, as a whisper from behind my own heartbeat. I am faith without light. I am the truth that endures when belief dies.
You sought the Emperor. You found yourself. I tried to deny it. Tried to summon the Emperor's name, to recite the creed of purity, but the words turned to ash on my tongue. My knees hit the cold stone.
I felt something stir inside my skull, like a door opening inward, releasing not a demon, but recognition. I saw flashes of every judgment I had ever passed, the faces of the condemned, the prayers I had silenced, the faith I had demanded at gunpoint.
And through it all, a single thought. Who decides what is heresy when all light is born from fire? The vault began to shake, dust falling like snow from the ceiling. The caskets around me lit up, one by one, voices crying out in a chorus of half-lost prayers. They were not heretics. They were inquisitors, confessing to the same silence that haunted me. The same hum, the same slow erosion of certainty. Some begged for death. Others begged for truth.
None received either. When I awoke, I was outside the chamber.
The custodian stood over me, his masked face unreadable. You have seen what you were meant to see, he said. I demanded to know what that thing was, what the vault truly contained. He only turned away. Faith leaves echoes, Inquisitor. Sometimes those echoes learn to speak. As I left Mycena Prime, the stars seemed closer, brighter, as though the void itself leaned in to listen. Dresk asked no questions. Lyra kept her distance, her prayers quieter now, tinged with fear. I told myself that what I saw was hallucination, the product of exhaustion. Yet deep down, I knew better. The vault had not shown me madness. It had shown me what happens when faith outlives reason. That night, alone in my quarters, I dreamt again of the throne. Not golden now, but hollow. The figure upon it was not light, but absence given shape. Its mouth opened, and from it came my own voice, whispering through 1,000 tongues, "The Emperor does not speak." "We do." I awoke gasping. the hum roaring in my skull, and realized the truth I could no longer deny. Whatever haunted Gathis 4 had followed me home.
And it was learning to use my voice.
There is a silence that exists only after revelation, the kind that gnaws rather than soothes. Since my Senor Prime, that silence has followed me like a wound that refuses to close. The hum no longer hides in the corners of thought. It lives within every breath, a low vibration beneath my pulse.
Even in the sanctum of my mind, I am not alone. Our ship, Vigilant Mercy,
drifts through the void toward terror. The journey should have taken 3 months under warp translation, but time itself has become suspect. The clocks disagree. The stars outside the viewing deck do not match any astromantic chart I've seen. Dresk insists it's a navigation error, yet his voice trembles when he says it. Lyra does not sleep. She keeps vigil beside the chapel lumen, whispering psalms that sound less like prayer and more like apology. The crew has started avoiding me. I hear their murmurs when I pass. He listens to the walls. His shadow moves when he stands still. Perhaps they are right. Sometimes, when the lights flicker, I see my reflection delay.
As if my image and I are no longer the same creature, I've begun recording everything, not for the Inquisition,
but for whoever finds this record when the hull cools and the air runs out. There must be proof. The vault on my Senor Prime changed me, though I still do not understand how. It whispered truths I cannot repeat without feeling my tongue turn to dust. The thing I met in that chamber, the echo, the shade, the voice, it knew me. It wore my own certainty as a mask. It said, "The Emperor dreams." I had always been taught that he does not dream, that he watches unblinking across eternity. But what if he does? What if his dreams are what keep the galaxy burning? The ecclesiarchs call it holy light. I have begun to wonder if it is merely the fever glow of a dying god. 3 nights ago, Dresk came to me. He looked pale, hollow, his eyes ringed with sleepless bruises. He told me the astropath had gone silent. Not dead, not mad, just quiet. When they tried to open her mind for transmission, they heard a whisper, not in High Gothic, not in any human tongue, but in a rhythm that matched the hum. It said your name, Dresk confessed.
Over and over.
Like a chant. I went to see her body in the medici bay. She sat upright in the restraint chair, eyes wide, staring at something only she could see. Her skin was cold, yet her lips moved, silently mouthing words I couldn't hear until I leaned close. That was when she spoke.
Not in her voice. In mine. The throne is breaking. The lights died.
The bay plunged into blackness. When they flickered back to life, she was gone. Nothing left but the restraints, twisted open from the inside. Since then, the ship has begun to rot. Steel panels flake like dead skin, lumen globes dim to a heartbeat rhythm, and the air recyclers hiss with something that sounds like breath. Dresk wants to purge the systems to shut down everything but life support.
I told him no.
If this thing lives in our machinery, I want it awake where I can watch it. Lyra disagreed, said that's the language of heretics. I told her I was only speaking as a man who's seen the Emperor's shadow and found it taller than his light. She slapped me across the face. Still, she prays louder now. We reached orbit around what should have been Terra 5 days ago.
It isn't. The star maps match, the beacon codes align, but the planet below is shrouded in cloud, not storm cloud, but something heavier, almost alive.
Vox attempts return whispers. No clearance, no answer. Just echoes of our own transmissions, repeating words we never sent. Through the viewing glass, I saw something move within the clouds.
Not a fleet, not a city light. Something vast, like a continent shifting beneath a veil.
Dresk wanted to turn back. Lyra said it was the Emperor's judgment, that he had hidden himself from those who doubted.
I said nothing, but the hum filled my chest until I thought my ribs might break.
It wanted me to look closer. To see, I ordered descent. The vigilant mercy entered the atmosphere like a dying bird. The clouds were not vapor. They were dust and ash, held aloft by something unseen. Lightning tore across the heavens, not white, but crimson. Through the storm I saw the surface below, not green, not gold, but black glass and ruin. Terror, the cradle of mankind, were burned long ago. We landed near what should have been the Imperial Palace. It was there, in shape, in silhouette, but broken. The towers leaned like bones left too long in the sun. The golden dome had collapsed inward, revealing not the light of the throne, but a chasm from which a steady red glow pulsed. Lyra fell to her knees, sobbing. Dresk began laughing, a hollow, frightened sound. I walked toward the breach. The heat radiating from it was not physical, but spiritual, like standing before the breath of judgment itself. As I descended, the hum grew clearer. Words hidden within it, forming syllables, phrases. We are his dream. We are his wound.
And then at the heart of the hollow I saw the throne. It was not empty. A shape sat upon it, vast and terrible, neither man nor God.
The body was metal and bone, fused in ways that defied comprehension. The face was gone. Not destroyed, but replaced by countless smaller visages, shifting, speaking, whispering in unison. Some bore the features of saints, others of sinners, and among them, impossibly, I saw my own. When it spoke, every voice echoed through me. You sought me in fire. You found only your reflection. I fell to my knees. My faith, once iron, dissolved like wax. What are you?
I asked. The voices laughed, a sound like the cracking of stars.
I am what remains when belief outlives its God.
I am the throne, broken but dreaming.
You are my dream, Kael Varin, my thought-given skin.
My question-given mouth. The realization struck like a bolt gun to the chest. I was never meant to find answers. I was meant to be one.
The Inquisition, the faith, the wars, all of it the Emperor's mind trying to remember itself through endless human mirrors. Around me, the walls of the palace shuddered. Lyra screamed prayers until her voice tore. Dresk fired into the air as if bullets could kill revelation. The throne's glow consumed them both, erasing them like names from history. Only I remained. The throne's light reached for me, not burning, but inviting. It whispered, "Return to me, my echo. Bring silence to the faithful." I should have resisted. Instead, I stepped forward. The hum became a song, the song became thought, and the thought became peace. For a moment, I understood everything. The Emperor's dream, humanity's hunger, the endless war to fill a void that can never be filled. Then I saw what lay beyond the throne, an expanse of nothing,
stretching without end.
The hum faded, replaced by stillness. I realized the truth that every saint fears to speak. The Emperor was not dying. He had already died. It is us who dream of him, not the other way around, and dreams, sooner or later, must end. They say silence is peace, but I have learned silence is only what remains when all voices have forgotten themselves. I awoke in that silence. No ship, no sky, no weight of the body. Only the whisper of thought drifting through endless grey. I remembered my name, Kael Varin, though it felt like a relic left behind in a forgotten tomb. I remembered the throne, its shattering light, and the words that had unmade me. Everything after that was absence, then breath. Cold, real human?
I opened my eyes. I was no longer in the palace ruins.
The air was clean, sterile. The hum was gone. Instead, I heard the faint crackle of data slates and the distant murmur of servo skulls cataloguing scripture. A symbol glowed above me, the twin-headed Aquila, sharp and unbroken. I lay upon a medici slab, surrounded by white-robed attendants. Their faces were expressionless, their movements precise. One of them, a woman with a bionic eye, noticed my stirring. "Welcome back, Inquisitor Varin," she said. Her voice carried no warmth. "You have been absent." I tried to speak, but my throat burned. She offered no water, only a mirror. "See for yourself." I looked and wished I hadn't. The reflection that stared back was not entirely mine. My eyes shimmered faintly gold, and thin lines of circuitry crawled beneath the skin, pulsing in rhythm with a sound only I could hear. The hum had not left me.
It had moved inside. Where am I? I rasped. Terror, she replied.
The palace stands. The throne endures. You were found adrift aboard a derelict ship in the Segmentum Solar, unconscious but alive. Your report on Mycena Prime is incomplete. Terror. The word should have brought comfort, but it felt hollow, like a prayer spoken without belief. I rose, ignoring the pain in my limbs, and followed her through the corridor. The walls were lined with purity seals and pick screens showing fragments of the Golden Throne. Its eternal machinery.
Its endless hum of devotion, the same hum that lived in my blood. When we entered the viewing chamber,
I saw it again, not through ruin this time, but in its living form. The throne loomed colossal, its cables like veins, its light so bright it hurt to look upon. Thousands of adepts chanted litanies, maintaining the Astronomican's flame. I should have fallen to my knees as I once did, but I only stood there, numb, watching. The woman beside me turned. "Do you feel it?" she asked. I met her gaze. "Feel what?" "The Emperor's will." "His presence," I wanted to say yes.
Instead, I said, "I feel the echo of something that no longer remembers itself." She flinched, as though I had spoken heresy aloud.
Perhaps I had, but the truth had already stripped me bare. There was nothing left to fear. Later they brought me before the High Conclave. The chamber was vast, lit by banners of flame and scripture. Figures in robes of crimson and black surrounded me, faces hidden behind gold visors, their voices layered over one another, a chorus of judgment. "Inquisitor, Kael Varin," one intoned. "You stand accused of blasphemous thought and false testimony regarding the Emperor's divine state. You claim to have witnessed the throne fractured and the Master of Mankind dead." I said nothing. Another voice. Deeper, colder.
"Speak, what did you see?"
The memory returned in flashes, the hum, the throne of faces, the light that devoured faith. My words trembled.
"I saw what we were never meant to see."
The Emperor's body endures, but his consciousness, his divinity, is scattered. What we call his will is not a presence but a reflection of all who believe. The throne lives because we dream it does. A silence heavier than gravity fell. Then soft laughter, cruel, amused. "You mistake faith for delusion," said one of the conclave.
"Perhaps the warp has infected your reason." I looked up.
"Perhaps reason is the infection that makes faith possible." They sentenced me, of course. Not to death, that would have been mercy. They ordered my transfer to the Ordo Occultarum for containment and observation. A polite phrase for burial alive, yet that night, before the transport arrived, I was visited by someone I had never seen before, a custodian. Gold armor gleaming faintly, helm under his arm, eyes unreadable. "You went beyond the veil," he said quietly. "Few return with their minds intact. Do you believe it?"
I asked. "That he still watches?"
He hesitated, the smallest flicker of doubt. Then, "Belief is the Emperor's last command. Doubt is a luxury we were never meant to afford." He placed something on the table beside me, a small data slate sealed with the sigil of the adeptus custodes. "This record never existed," he said. "But there are others who have seen what you saw. When the day comes that the throne truly fails, they will remember your words." And then he was gone. I sat in the dark, listening to the hum inside me. It was softer now, almost gentle, like the heartbeat of a slumbering giant. I thought of Lyra, of Dresk, of all who had burned in revelation. Were they truly dead, or had they simply awakened in another dream? Perhaps faith is not destroyed by truth, but transformed by it, reshaped into something colder, quieter, infinite. When they took me aboard the transport, I felt no fear. The stars outside the viewport shimmered faintly gold, and for the first time I understood. The Emperor's light was never a beacon. It was a mirror. Every prayer, every sacrifice, every drop of blood, all of it feeding a reflection that needed us as much as we needed it. And if that reflection fades, another will rise, because humanity cannot exist without its gods, and gods cannot exist without those who believe. In the end, I no longer know whether I am the dreamer or the dream. Perhaps I am both. Perhaps the Emperor, too, was once just a man who looked into the void and mistook its echo for divinity. The hum deepens again, as if answering thought with thought. I close my eyes, and for a moment I see him. Not the golden corpse, but the idea beneath it. A flicker of something vast and sorrowful, reaching through the ages, trying to remember its own name. I whisper into the dark, "We are still here." And somewhere, impossibly, the void whispers back, "I know."